It's time for Dodger Baseball. Live from Dodger Stadium, Sportsnet LA presents the Dodgers as they take on the Cleveland Indians. Hi, everybody, and a very pleasant Monday evening to you, wherever you may be. Yes, the Dodgers and the Cleveland Indians. They've only played each other 6 times down through the years. The Dodgers have won 4 of the 6. Oh, yes, they did pair once in the World Series back in 1920. That was best 5 out of 9, and Cleveland beat the Dodgers 5-2. And in that series, the second baseman for Cleveland, Bill Wambsgans, turned in the only unassisted triple play in World Series history. But today, it'll be Dan Herron on the mound with a record of 7-4. Last 2 games, no decisions. Before that, 2 victories. And on the mound for the Cleveland Indians, Corey Kluber. At one time, Corey was in the San Diego farm system, involved in a trade, now with Cleveland. He is 7-5. Don't let that fool you. He has allowed 3 runs or less 12 of his last 15 starts, and in his career, 6 wins and no losses against the National League. So pull up a chair. Here she comes, the Dodgers and the Indians, and a ball game with a whole lot more right after this.
Baseball, everybody, as fans make their way into Dodger Stadium to take in an interleague matchup between the Cleveland Indians and the Los Angeles Dodgers. Game 1 of a 3-game set. Welcome inside Dodger Stadium, everybody. I'm Alana Rizzo. We have talked at length about the amount of ground that the Dodgers have made up in the last 21 days. Since June 8th, they have made up 9.5 games. They are no longer trailing the San Francisco Giants. Take a look at the record, 15-6. The batting average collectively, 275. really capitalizing with runners in scoring position. The starters' ERA, they've been tremendous. 2.34. They have only allowed 4 errors in that span. Certainly have shored up their defense, and you can argue it's a team effort, but there are 3 guys in particular that really have made a difference in the month of June, leading the way since June 8th. Of course, D. Gordon, you know what he can do at the top of a lineup, a .329 average, and speed kills. 4 steals. He has 3 triples. Matt Kemp, of course, getting used to playing left field. .351 average, 3 home runs in that time. He has driven in 15, and Justin Turner, unfortunately, on the 15-day DL with a hamstring issue, but he has been tremendous in the month of June. A .441 average, 6 RBIs. In fact, he was hitting .500 with runners in scoring position. Don Mattingly getting ready for his club to take on Terry Francona and the Cleveland Indians. After the break, Vince Scully on the call. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Pleasant Monday evening to you, wherever you may be. Matt Kemp and the Dodgers taking place in pursuit of the Giants. That's right. Technically, they are 1 percentage point behind San Francisco, and so a victory tonight would get them into first place all by themselves for the first time since late in April. So as Matt Kemp puts his name on a baseball, Dan Haren is hoping to put a W on his record. Haren on the mound with a record of 7-4, 0-1 when he was with the Angels, and you go way back with Haren going up against Cleveland. He is 4-3 lifetime. Meanwhile, a warm welcome to Terry Francona, one of the truly wonderful guys in this game of baseball. Terry's father, Tito, played for 15 years in the major leagues, so he's a real chip off the old block. And we'll take a look at his lineup tonight. And it goes this way. Michael Bourne, the center fielder, leading off. Asdrubal Cabrera will be at shortstop. Michael Brantley in left field. Carlos Santana at first base. Jason Kipnis at second. Lonnie Chisenhall is hitting .350. He needs just a couple of more plate appearances to qualify for the American League batting title. After him, Jan Gomes, his catcher. David Murphy in right field. And Corey Kluber on the mound. On the mound for the Dodgers, Dan Haren with a record of 7-4. He's been plagued, as you probably know of late, of home runs, especially since the middle of May. Dan, since the middle of May, has been giving up 14 of his 16 home runs. So he started off the year in fine style, and lately the National League hitters have been giving him a bad time. We'll see now what happens with the American League. Michael Bourne leads off, left-hand batter, and takes low, ball one. Michael's from Houston, Texas. Originally drafted by the Phillies, went to the University of Houston. Swings at a slow curveball, doesn't get it, and the count 1-1. Michael Bourne's dad, a petrochemical operator for an oil company, moved the family to the Humble area in Houston. Michael takes the pitch off the plate. 5'11", 180. Not much power to speak of, but pretty good hitter, hitting .272. Aaron ready and comes back. Bourne swings, fouls it off, and the count runs now to 2 balls and 2 strikes. Interesting to look at Cleveland and the Dodgers. First of all, the Dodgers have won 7 out of 10. Cleveland has lost 7 out of 10, and their big problem is trying to win on the road. 2-2 pitch is taken low, ball 3. Cleveland's okay at home. They're 8 games above 500, but on the road, 11 games under. They've won 16 while losing 27. The next pitch to Bourne is pulled foul on the ground outside of first, and the count 3-2 the count. Michael Bourne came up to the Phillies back in 2006. Then he went to the Astros in 2008. Then he went to the Braves for a couple of years, and now with Cleveland. 3-2 pitch is pulled on the ground to the right side. Gordon is up with it to throw him out. So Michael Bourne taps out, 1 away. Take a look at the Dodgers with the leather. Gonzalez and Gordon, Rojas and Uribe, with Kemp, Ethier, and Puig in the outfield, Ellis behind the plate, and Herron on the mound. Struble, the young shortstop, checking in with 1 out here in the first inning. Another difference between the two teams, the Dodgers have now won 15 of their last 21. The Indians have lost 11 of their last 17. So Cleveland 6.5 games back at Detroit. And the pitch now to Cabrera, a switch hitter, is low, batting left-handed. Asdrubal Cabrera. He's out of Puerto La Cruz in Venezuela, originally signed by the Mariners. He takes low and inside. 2 balls and no strikes to count. So Dan Herron in quest of his 8th win. He is 7-4. Last 2 times out, no decision. And his 2-0 pitch on the way is a 1-hopper right at Gonzalez. Adrian will do it himself. So 2 down here in the first inning. And the batter now will be Michael Brantley, the left fielder. So 2 out, first inning. No score in the ball game. Michael Brantley is the son of former big leaguer Mickey Brantley. In fact, he's one of those rugrats who grew up in various dressing rooms in the big leagues. At one time in the locker room in spring training, he would try to hang out with Ricky Henderson. And as he said, I just wanted to hear what he had to say. Brantley takes low, ball 1. Michael is certainly big enough facing Herron. Michael is 6'2", 200-pounder. Just turned 27. Originally signed by the Brewers, and he came up to the Indians in 2009. Next pitch to him is in for a strike. Change up, 1 ball and 1 strike. Herron lost against Cleveland last time when he was with the Angels. Dan working from the first base side of the rubber, shoots a fastball outside, and that runs the count 2 balls and 1 strike. Herron trying to keep it going. Dodgers with a modest 2-game winning streak. Now the 2-1 pitch on the way. Dan deals very high with his fastball. 3-1 the count to Brantley, with Carlos Santana on deck. Santana, another switch hitter. So Herron with 2 out, bases empty. Dan ready, in the 3-1 pitch on the way, and that drops in for a strike. Remember that Dodger streak, 33 consecutive games, where the starters have allowed 2 walks or less. So 3-2 the count. Aaron rocks and turns, hesitates, now delivers, and it's fouled away. We're talking about the differences between the Indians and the Dodgers. One team's been winning, one has not. For Terry Francona, his starters have let him down. They're 21-32, but his relievers have been great. They're 18-10. The Dodgers are the other way around. The 3-2 pitch is fouled off. The Dodgers starters are doing the job. They're 41-22 for Don Mattingly. The relievers, however, are struggling. The bullpen is 6-15. So that's a decided difference between these two teams. 30th of June, just one step into July, and the 3-2 pitch is a ground ball to the right side. Up with it is D. Gordon, so a nice first inning. 3 ground balls, and Herron heads for the dugout. No runs, no hits, no errors, nobody left. And now Corey Kluber, who is 6-0 in his career against the National League, heading for the mound. Ground balls on this beautiful evening. 69 degrees in the ballpark as we check Don Mattingly's lineup and the names they're on. D. Gordon, of course, leading off at second base. Yasiel Puig in right and Adrian Gonzalez at first base. Matt Kemp hits cleanup in left field. Andre Ethier had the big home run yesterday with 2 men aboard. He's in center. Juan Uribe at third base. A.J. Ellis behind the plate. Miguel Rojas at short, and Dan Herron on the mound. On the mound for Cleveland, Corey Kluber. At one time, Corey was in the San Diego organization. He was a 4th-round pick out of Stetson University back in 2007, but he never did make it to the Padres. He was selected out of the organization in a big 3-way deal and surfaced with Cleveland 3 years ago. He is a fastball strikeout pitcher, and he begins with Gordon, a fastball at 92 off the plate, 1 ball and no strikes. D. Gordon hitting .295, hitting about .315 in the month of June, and of course brings along 40 stolen bases. Kluber's 1-0 pitch on the way is a high fly ball to center. Bourne going back on it, still on the grass, and makes the catch for the out. So D. Gordon, long fly ball to center, 1 down. Take a look at Cleveland defensively. Santana and Kipnis, Cabrera and Chisenhall, Brantley, Bourne, and Murphy, and Gomes behind the plate. So 1 away, and now Yasiel Puig coming up. And looking at the Dodgers offensively as we run out of June tonight, Yasiel batting .312 with 11 home runs, 45 runs batted in. Fastball down and away, ball 1. The Dodgers in the month of June alone, D. Gordon has a home run, 11 RBIs, hitting .316. Andre Ethier has a home run, 6 RBIs, hitting only .216. Meanwhile, Puig takes a strike. Yasiel in June, no home runs. He had 8 home runs in May, remember. He had 25 runs batted in May. He has only 5 in June. 1-1 pitch in for a strike, and the count 1-2. And Yasiel, by the way, was hitting .398 through May. He's hit .247 in June. 1-2 the count. Kluber set, Corey deals, slider, and that's going to be dumped into right field for a base hit. So the slider away, Puig just went with it and wisely single to right field. And that'll bring up Adrian Gonzalez. Adrian Gonzalez has got his stroke back, according to Don Mattingly. Adrian hitting .253, 13 home runs, 50 runs batted in. During the month of June, however, he has struggled. 1 home run, 13 runs batted in. And of course, yesterday the big play certainly seemed to spark the Dodgers. In the 4th inning, they had the shift on and he bunted up along third. Well, the Indians load up on the right side. Kluber set at the belt. Corey looks over his left shoulder. Now the right-hander deals. Fastball low. Ball 1. 1-0 the count to Adrian Gonzalez. No score. We're just starting. First inning. Kluber with 122 strikeouts. So he's a hard baller. Corey a long look in to get a sign from Gomes. And the 1-0 pitch on the way is high and away. Ball 2, 2-0. With Kluber on the mound and the Dodgers have Puig at first, you wonder about stolen bases as Matt Kemp tunes up. It should be noted that Gomes has nailed 34% of the opposing base runners. That comes up to 18 out of 53. The 2-0 pitch on the way. Kluber set, comes back, and it's fouled off. Though Adrian up there with a count, 2 balls and 1 strike. One thing the Dodgers have done, and it's taken quite a bit of effort, but they have improved dramatically defensively. Remember, in May, they were just about the worst team. Now, in June, they've become a very, very good club. Last 3 weeks, 21 games, they've only made 4 errors. Cleveland, however, is the other way. Here's the 2-1 pitch coming up to Adrian Gonzalez, swung on and missed, and the count 2-2. The Indians are first, or maybe you should say last. Either way, for Terry Francona, his ball club has to play better defensively. They have made 70 errors so far. 2 balls and 2 strikes the count to Adrian Gonzalez. Corey Kluber. Big fella ready. There goes Puig, and the pitch fouled away. Though Yasiel off to the races. He's a break-even base stealer. 7 stolen bases and 7 caught. Corey Kluber suffered the darndest injury. In fact, you could probably write a book. Major league players can suffer the darndest injury. Not a bad title. He has about an 8-month-old daughter at the time. We're talking 2 years ago. And like a good father, he was going to change the baby's diaper. Here's the 2-2 pitch coming up. We'll watch Puig. So is Kluber. And decides to throw over. Anyway, what Kluber did, he took the 8-month-old baby, found a spot on the floor, put the baby down. Then he went to work on changing the diaper. Sitting with his legs crossed, he finished, grabbed the baby, pushed himself up, and all of a sudden he blew out his right knee, changing his baby's diaper. 2-2 pitch on the way. Kluber delivers. Gonzalez swings, doesn't get it, kind of uppercutted that, and down he goes. Of course, to be honest with you, and this is true, if you want to talk about knee surgeries, take a nice big look at Terry Francona. I think Terry Francona has more physical problems and has had an incredible career. He has had knee surgery. Are you ready? 18 times. Yep. Had it not been for the knees, Terry might have had a much longer career. As we mentioned, his dad, Tito, had 15 years in the big leagues. Well, here's Matt Kemp. Kemp in June, 3 home runs, 16 runs batted in, and hit .320. Swings at a slider, fouls it back, and they count 0-1. Either a slider or a cutter, I'm not sure, but just late movement and barely much movement at that. So fastball, slider, curve, and a change, and it seems like everybody throws that cutter. 0-1 the count to Matt Kemp. Kluber is 6'4", 215 pounds, 28 years old, and the strike one pitch instead of throw to first. No score, bottom of the first inning. Puig tried to go once, probably a hit and run play, and Gonzalez fouled it off. Now with 2 down, if he's gone, it'd be a straight steal. So Yasiel takes his lead. Kluber watches him. Now comes to the plate inside at the kneecaps. 1 ball and 1 strike to Matt Kemp. Game 1 of the 3-game series between the Dodgers and the Cleveland Indians. Amazing, over the years, the Dodgers and the Indians have only played 6 games. The Dodgers have won 4 of the 6, except we mentioned it at the start, if you weren't with us, the rather famous 1920 World Series. Here's the 1-1 pitch, another throw to first. Back in 1920, the World Series was not best 4 out of 7. It was best 5 out of 9. And Cleveland beat the Brooklyn Dodgers in 5 out of 7. But the thing that's forever remembered about the 1920 World Series, Billy Wambsgans, the second baseman for Cleveland, pulled off the only unassisted triple play in World Series history. 1-1 pitch on the way is swung on late, fouled off first, and the count 1-2. It's the usual story for an unassisted triple play. First of all, the Dodgers had 2 men on. The batter was a sometimes pitcher and a good hitting pitcher, Clarence Mitchell. And Mitchell hit a line drive that looked like it was heading for center field with the runners going. And all Wambsgans did was field the line drive, step on second, and the runner from first was coming right to him. Voila, a triple play. The 1-2 pitch, Kemp swings, fouls that back. Still 1-2. Well, we almost had another one tonight. Jake Arrieta, who's out of Farmington, Missouri, just south of St. Louis, went to high school in Plano, Texas, went to college at Texas Christian. Well, he had a no-hitter into the 7th inning against Homer Bailey and the Reds at Wrigley. Went 7 2/3 innings, and then it was broken up. He'd get the win eventually. Here's the 1-2 pitch coming up. There goes Puig, and it's pulled on the ground back at third. Long throw on the money. Good arm. Lonnie Chisenhall really took dead aim and hit his man. So no runs, 1 hit, a man left, and at the end of an inning, no score. No score in the ball game. You know, Don Newcomb, the first player in Major League Baseball history to win Rookie of the Year, Cy Young Award, and MVP. Well, tomorrow at 7:10, you can take home a replica Brooklyn Nuke jersey. Compliments of Time Warner Cable. For tickets, visit Dodgers.com/promotions. For the Indians, Santana, Kipnis, and Chisenhall in that order. Carlos Santana has a very good eye at the plate. He walks a lot. Left-hand batter. Change-up is on the outside corner for strike. And the count 0-1. Santana, a switch hitter. He has walked 58 times, struck out 68, and takes the next one low in the 1-ball, 1-strike count. So about 19% of the time he draws a walk. Usually he works the count to be his way. He takes a pitch in there, so he's behind in the count now, 1-2. During his year with Cleveland, he gets a lot of 2-0 and 3-0 counts. He's walked a lot in June. He also hit a half a dozen home runs in June. And the left-hand hitter takes low. The Dodgers don't exactly overly commit the shift. I mean, D. Gordon is 5 feet out on the grass. Gonzalez deep at first. However, Rojas is still on the shortstop side of the bag, but almost straight up the middle. The next pitch sounds like a crack bat, comebacker, and underhand toss by Dan Haren. So Santana hits back, and we have one away. And the batter will be Jason Kipnis. Jason coming up, the second baseman. Kipnis hitting .249, 3 home runs, 22 runs batted in. Another left-hand batter. They have really stacked the lineup with left-handers against Haren. And the first pitch in for a strike, and the count 0-1. Jason Kipnis out of Northbrook, Illinois, went to Arizona State. The strike one pitch is swung on and missed. When you look at the Cleveland lineup, Bourne is left, Cabrera is left, he switches. Brantley is left, Santana, a switch hitter, is left. Kipnis is left, Chisenhall is left, Murphy is left. So 7 of the 9 hit left-handed against Haren. The next pitch on the outside corner, strike 3 called. So Kipnis caught looking. 2 down. First strikeout for Dan Haren as he gets the edge. And the batter now will be Lonnie Chisenhall, who is having a very great first half of the season. Chisenhall needs 7 plate appearances to qualify the American League batting title, at least a race. He's hitting .350, swings, doesn't get the first one, and the count 0-1. Chisenhall has had a wonderful month of June. He's knocked in 21 of his 36 RBIs. He also has 8 home runs and 20 doubles. Chisenhall takes the next one low and inside. No score, second inning. Dan Haren, Corey Kluber. The 1-1 pitch on the way, and that swung on and fouled back. So Lonnie Chisenhall up there with a 1-ball, 2-strike count. Chisenhall is from Morehead City, North Carolina. He still lives there. Now the next pitch to him is taken a little high. June the 9th this year. What a surge by Chisenhall. 3 home runs, 5 hits, and 9 RBIs. They beat Texas 17-7, and he drives one to right, but it's playable. Puig running to his left, picks it off, and that'll be that. So down go the Indians, and at the end of an inning and a half, no score. score in the ball game, the Dodgers and the Indians. The Dodgers had a base runner, Puig, who singled to right and failed to advance. So into the bottom of the second inning, Andre Ethier, Juan Uribe, and A.J. Ellis. As we finish up the month of June, it's interesting to look back at the players' work. Andre Ethier hit 1 home run in June. That was yesterday. He has 4 for the year. In June, he had 6 runs batted in. 3 of them came yesterday. So with one swing of the bat, he had that 3-run home run. However, he still hit only .216 in the month. So Ethier checking in, feeling a lot better about things after that home run yesterday. Kluber delivers, ground ball foul outside of first down the line. While we're talking about home runs, Kluber has allowed 8. So Corey Kluber working on Andre Ethier. Second inning, no score. Kluber standing back of the rubber, working on a new ball. Ethier backs out. Back in April, Corey Kluber really had a gem. His strike 1 pitch way off the plate. It was against Kansas City. He pitched 9 scoreless innings, allowed 1 hit, no runs, no walks, and struck out 11. So he can pitch. 1 ball and 1 strike. He nods in agreement with his catcher Gomes, and he comes back with a strike at the knees, and the count 1-2. We mentioned that Kluber has given up 8 home runs. Well, that's 12th lowest to percentage of plate appearances as Juan Uribe waits. He's a strikeout pitcher, as we said. 122 coming in. The 1-2 pitch, Ethier looks, and that's just off the plate. One of the big things for Kluber, he has struck out 22 hitters with men in scoring position. Which brings up yet another difference between the two teams, as Ethier hits a high fly ball but playable to center. Michael Bourne is right there, reaches up and brings it down, and we have 1 away in the second inning. If you look at these two teams with 2 out and runners in scoring position, the Indians are really struggling. As a team, Terry's club is hitting just .179, and several of the guys aren't even close to 200. Santana .148, Kipnis .160, Cabrera .030. So the Indians struggling, and yet 6.5 back. They have been a good club at home. They have to learn how to win on the road. As we said, 16-27 on the road. Juan Uribe takes off the plate. Ball 1, 1-0. Uribe, of course, missed a good portion of the month of June, hitting .294, 4 home runs, 21 runs batted in. He checks on a pitch on the outside corner for a strike, and the count 1-1. 1 out, second inning, no score. 1-1 pitch on the way is swung on and fouled away off to the right upstairs, and the count 1-2. Dodgers and Indians closing out the Dodger homestand. They'll finish Wednesday. Tomorrow night, regular 7:10 game. Wednesday, remember, 12:10. Justin Masterson against Josh Beckett tomorrow night. And then Trevor Bauer against Hyun-Jin Ryu Wednesday afternoon. Meanwhile, Uribe swings and misses on an off-speed pitch, and down he goes. So Kluber, a strikeout pitcher, now has 2. And A.J. Ellis coming up. Give you an idea of the problems for Terry Francona. The club is last, worst, or however you want to call it, in fielding. They're not hitting with runners in scoring position. They're 11 games under 500 on the road, and he has used 287 relievers so far this year. Kluber's pitch is in for a strike, 0-1. So that means the Indians are averaging at least 3 relievers per game. A.J. Ellis hitting .230. Hit .300 in the month of June. No home runs. 3 runs batted in. Kluber is pretty much of a ground ball pitcher. Fastball fouled away. They always figure out, and he would be 12th highest in ground balls to fly balls. Sometimes you think of a guy who throws hard, strikes out a lot of people. He's a fly ball pitcher, but not in the case of Corey Kluber. Kluber ready, and the pitch is low. Of his 8 home runs, 6 of them have been hit by left-hand batters. He has an even count, 2 balls and 2 strikes. One of the things the American League hitters are doing, they're going up and swinging at the first pitch a lot. 2-2 pitch, swung on, ground ball, long throw from third by Chisenhall, and it's right there. Nice stretch by Santana. So down go the Dodgers, and at the end of 2 here at Dodger Stadium, no score. For Cleveland and the Dodgers, it'll be Murphy, Gomes, and Kluber in that order. And Dan Haren so far has retired 6 in a row. So Murphy, the right fielder, will be checking off in a moment. Murphy, another of the long list of left-hand batters. No score in the ball game. Yan Gomes is leading off. So Gomes, a right-hand batter, hitting .267, 9 home runs, 28 runs batted in. And the first pitch from Dan Haren is taken a little low. Ball 1, 1-0. No score. The Indians retired 6 in a row. Haren struck out 1. Now the 1-0 pitch on the way. Gomes has a look, pays the price, and we have a 1-ball, 1-strike count. Gomes, one of the few right-hand hitters in the lineup, is from Sao Paulo in Brazil. Now the 1-1 pitch on the way. Ground ball slowly to short. Rojas picks it up, flips over to first in time for the out. So 1 away here in the 3rd inning as Yan Gomes grounds out. Well, let's see. Both France and Germany won in the World Cup, so they're going to play each other. And of course, tomorrow, the USA plays Belgium. One away, and here's Daniel Murphy. Murphy hitting .244. Left-hand hitter takes an off-speed pitch for a strike, and they count 0-1. Murph, 5 home runs, 38 runs batted in. Aaron Reddian comes back and misses inside. 1 ball, 1 strike. Working on David Murphy out of Texas, Houston to be exact. Went to school at Baylor. And the 1-1 pitch, Murph takes off the plate, ball 2, 2-1. Murphy was originally a first-round pick of the Red Sox, of course, with a name like Murphy. He made it for the Red Sox briefly twice, takes way off the plate in 2007 and in 2006, but he never really had much of a chance to play. Big 12 honors. He led the conference in all kinds of things. 6'4", 210, and takes a pitch high for ball 4. So Murphy draws the walk, and the batter will be Corey Kluber.
Pitcher, number 28, Corey Kluber.
I think one of the biggest surprises in the major leagues, you'd have to go back to 1954, and I realize that's a long time ago. Well, the World Series between the Cleveland Indians and the New York Giants. The pitch, Kluber gets a nice bunt down. Picking it up is Herron. Plenty of time to get it to Gordon. And taking second is Murphy on the sacrifice. Anyway, the Cleveland staff that year, he had Bob Lemon. He was 23-7. Early Wynn, 23-11. Mike Garcia, 19-8. And then you had Bob Feller, Hal Newhouser, and 2 superlative relievers, Don Mossy and Ray Narleski. I mean, they look like a lock. Here's the first pitch, and that's outside to Bourne. Anyway, I think the Indians that year, you'd have to look it up, but I think they won 116 or 111 out of 154. I mean, it was unbelievable. They just won all the time. The 1-0 pitch on the way, in for a strike. And that year they were odds-on favorite to win against the New York Giants. I mean, wow. Lemon, Wynn, Garcia, Feller, Newhouser, blah, blah, blah. How'd they come out? Giants won in 4. That's right, 4 straight. 1-1 pitch fouled off. Bob Lemon, interestingly enough, who became a great pitcher, was a converted third baseman and outfielder. And Bill Dickey, the famous Yankee catcher, saw Lemon pitching in Hawaii during World War II. And he told Cleveland's playing manager, Lou Boudreau, that kid Lemon, he should be a pitcher. The next one to Bourne is low, 2-2 the count. Opening day, 1946. Lemon was the center fielder for the Cleveland Indians. He made a game-saving catch to give Bob Feller the victory. However, he didn't hit much, and they finally made him a pitcher. And what a pitcher he was. 2-2 the count to Michael Bourne. 2 down, 3rd inning, no score. Murphy at second, and a hopper up the middle, smothered by Rojas, gets up and throws him out on a bang play at first. Terry Francona out, and he will appeal. Adrian Johnson, the first base umpire. Now let's see, as Terry talks to him, he'll be checking the dugout to see whether, yeah, thumbs up, Brad Mills says. So that means an official review on a bang play at first. It always seems like it's the play at first, at least most of the time. Rojas making a great smothering stop to prevent a run. The throw and the runner arrive simultaneously. You realize you can't please anybody on a play like that if you're the umpire. And where the umpire stands, sometimes it's very hard to see inside the glove of the first baseman. Johnson is looking at the angle from where he should be, so he was in perfect position. And we'll check the official review. They're waiting for New York. Did they get him or didn't? It's so tough. You realize the plays are so tough, and yet the umpires do such a tremendous job. What's the decision? Safe. So it'll be an infield single for Michael Bourne, a run-saving play by the shortstop Rojas.
The ruling on the field has been overturned.
Murphy is now at third, so you have first and third, 2 down, top of the third inning. And Asdrubal Cabrera coming up. Cabrera is a very aggressive hitter. At least 37% of the time he'll swing at the first pitch. He's also a bunter. So the Dodgers have a lot to worry about with Cabrera as Asdrubal checks in. And the pitch to him swung on and missed. There you have it. First ball, and he went after it. Cabrera started switch hitting, they tell us, when he was 3 years old. What happened was he was just a baby, and somebody said, well, everybody switch hits in baseball. So he started his switch hit, and it's gotten into the big leagues. Next one is swung on and missed, so he's still as aggressive as ever. 0-2 the count. Originally signed by the Mariners in 2002. He's 29 years old come November. So Murphy at third, Bourne at first. Bourne, by the way, has stolen 6 out of 9. 2 out. No balls, 2 strikes to Cabrera. Aaron out of his stretch, checks. There goes Bourne. The pitch inside. A throw down is not in time. Murphy holding at third. So Bourne steals second, though he's 7 out of 10. Second and third. When Bourne was with Philadelphia in the National League, he was stealing a lot of bases, so he's still up to his old tricks. Second and third, 2 out. Cabrera at the plate, and a 1-ball, 2-strike count. Bourne stole as many as 61 bases for the Astros. The next one is in there at the letters. Strike 3 called, and Cabrera is really struggling. With 2 out and runners in scoring position, the Cleveland shortstop is 1 for 33, and we're scoreless. Third inning, no score in the ball game for the Indians, as they've been doing all year. They had runners at second and third, 2 out, but as a team with runners in scoring position, they're hitting only 179, and among others, Asdrubal Cabrera has just 1 hit. He is hitting less than .030. So the Cleveland leads 2. And we go to the bottom of the third, no score. It'll be Rojas who saved a run with that diving, smothering stop on the ball hit up the middle by Bourne. Rojas, Herron, and then Gordon. And the first pitch up and in at the chin. 1 ball and no strikes. We were talking about famous Indian pitchers without really talking much about Bob Feller. The 1-0 pitch in for a strike, and the count 1 ball, 1 strike. One of their top pitchers back there in the 50s was Early Wynn. He won 23 games that year, helping Cleveland get into the World Series. And he had a terrible reputation as being so mean. Chopper to third, backhanded by Chisenhall, to throw easily in time. And just like that, 1 away in the 3rd inning. Bill Veeck once talked to Early Wynn, and he said, you know, I've been watching you. You're so ferocious. You'd throw at your mother. And Early Wynn said only if she was digging in. And then not too long after that, sure enough, to show you he really was mean, he was pitching to his son in Cleveland. His son was a pretty good ball player. Not a little kid. I mean, he was a pretty good player. Here's the first pitch now to Dan Herron. And that's a strike, 0-1. And the son hit a Early Wynn curveball and banged it off the left field wall. Everybody oohed and awed. The next pitch, Wynn flattened him. Knocked him down, sure as shooting. Strike 1 pitch is hit foul outside of third. 0-2 the count. Dan has made 49 pitches in his 3 innings. Given up 1 hit, 1 walk. And we have no score, bottom of the 3rd. Outfield with a gap in left center. Dan, not a bad hitter. He takes a pitch on the outside corner, and he's history. So down goes Herron. That would be the 3rd strikeout for Corey Kluber. And with 2 out, D. Gordon coming up. D. Gordon in the National League, when you look at his credentials, he is first with 40 stolen bases. He is first in triples with 9. He is second hitting with runners in scoring position, hitting .362. He is tied for first in bunt hits. He has 9. He has a total of 24 infield hits. That's first. The pitch to D is taken for a strike. As far as stealing third, of his 40 stolen bases, D. Gordon has stolen third 8 times. I mean, he has become a one-man gang, a team photo all by himself. He runs up, shows bunt, doesn't try, and they count no balls and 2 strikes. Angel Hernandez is the plate umpire. Angel in his 22nd year as a big league umpire. The pitch to Gordon is pulled foul outside of first. Hernandez was born in Cuba. He lives in Florida. Angel joined the staff back in '93. He worked, among other things, the World Series in '02 and '05. Gordon waits, no balls, 2 strikes. Kluber comes back 0-2, and the fastball is low. One thing we heard from talking to some of the Cleveland broadcasters, the Indians were really sorry in one way that they didn't see Kershaw. But that's really what they wanted to see. But at the same time, Kershaw went there 1 day ahead of time, as you know. Went 7, struck out 13, and won handily 6-0. 2-2 the count to D. Gordon. We're in the 3rd, no score. Corey Kluber out of Binghamton, Florida, on the hill. His 2-2 pitch on the way to D. Gordon is taken low and inside at the left ankle. Ball 3. 3-2 the count. A lot of the hitters in the American League swing at the first pitch, and if you get the first pitch in play against Kluber, the league is hitting .362 against him. Now the full count pitch, little roller, coming in to scoop it up as Kipnis and makes the play. So the Dodgers are done. They've had one hit, that's all, and at the end of 3, no score. Brought to you by the Ram 1500, Motor Trend's 2014 Truck of the Year and first ever back-to-back champion. 4th inning at sunset time in Southern California, and a good ball game in 3 innings. No score, each side with 1 hit. It took a dazzling play on the ball hit by Michael Bourne and the stop by Miguel Rojas, or the Indians would be on the board. So Dan Herron dodged 1 in the 3rd inning, now going to work, and Michael Brantley will start it off. We were talking about where D. Gordon is with all those great numbers for him. Brantley is 5th in batting average, 5th in runs, 9th in hits, 5th in on-base percentage, 2nd hitting against right-hand pitching. He's hitting .332 against right-hand pitching. Very successful at home. Michael batting .350 at home in Cleveland. 0-1. Foul ball. So Brantley brings quite a game up to home plate. He's also 2nd in the American League in assists. He has a fine arm playing left field. He's thrown out 9. Comebacker knocked down by Herron and makes the play. So Herron, a good defensive play to knock down Brantley's comebacker. Worth another look. Off the right hip. Herron's okay. Brantley's retired. And we have 1 away. Carlos Santana hitting on the cleanup spot. Hit back to the box in the 2nd inning. Carlos struggling right now, hitting .206, but he's a power hitter. Foul ball, 0-1. No score, 4th inning. Santana with 12 home runs. Dodgers again, they don't totally commit. Right side very deep. Rojas not quite behind second base, and Uribe all alone. And a fly ball foul almost immediately, going all the way upstairs. Santana 5'11", but a solid 200-pounder. He's from the Dominican, and he is one of 8 children. Started playing ball when he was about 12. Dodgers originally signed Santana back in 2004. Takes a breaking ball low. He was a catcher. Santana, however, is playing first base tonight. 2-2 pitch on the way. Pop foul, out of play. Santana signed as a free agent in 2004. Went to Vero Beach, played at Ogden, Great Lakes, Inland Empire, and the next thing you know, he was off to the Cleveland Indians. He idolized former catcher Victor Martinez, so that's why he wears number 41 in honor of Martinez. Santana had all the credentials, top player here, top player there. Now the 3-2 pitch on the way, swung on, line to center. At the other end is Ethier to pick it off, and that ball was really hit. So Santana, a line drive out. That'll bring up the second baseman, Jason Kipnis. Kipnis. Kipnis, another left-hand batter. Jason has a look at a strike, off speed. He went from his home in Northbrook, Illinois, to the University of Kentucky. Redshirted as a freshman and then transferred to Arizona State, and eventually drafted by the Padres, turned down fourth-round money, went back to Arizona State, and was a second-round pick by the Indians in 2009, and he was playing in the big leagues 2 years after being signed. So he arrived in a hurry. Jason Kipnis, 5'11", 190, 27. Now the strike 2 pitch, foul back. Dan Haren has 2 out in the 4th inning, no score. Dodgers have had Puig single but never leave first base. The Indians had second and third, and Cabrera struck out. Meanwhile, Kluber, just sailing along, has struck out 3. 1-2 the count to Jason Kipnis. Next pitch, still the count, 1 ball and 2 strikes. Dan Haren with a record of 7-4, 4-3 in his career against Cleveland. Kipnis keeps fouling them off. Kipnis, a fine athlete. Most of these players are. He played several sports, baseball, football, and soccer, but he always knew he would be a professional baseball player. 1-2. 2-2. Jason Kipnis, by the way, just to fill out the character profile, he's a practicing Roman Catholic, but he self-identifies as Jewish due to his father's Jewish ancestry, and he looks at strike 3. So that's the 3rd strikeout for Dan Haren. Indians go 1-2-3, and at the end of 3.5, no score. It's Saturday, July 12th. The Dodgers commemorate Roy Campanella Night, and the first 50,000 fans in attendance with the Padres take home a Pee Wee Reese and Roy Campanella bobblehead, compliments of UnitedHealthcare.com. For tickets, visit Dodgers.com/promotions. One of the scenes I will forever remember: Pee Wee Reese pushing Roy Campanella out to the mound in a wheelchair. And I remember that night watching Campanella and thinking aloud how many times he went to the mound to talk to a discouraged pitcher, an angry pitcher, a downcast pitcher, trying to cheer him up. And now this time he's being wheeled out to the mound. It was quite a moment. Meanwhile, bottom of the fourth, no score. Kluber has made 44 pitches as he goes to work. Aaron has made a total of 68. That's a strike. Yasiel Puig hit a slider into right field for a base hit in the first inning. That's as far as he got. 1 ball and 1 strike to Yasiel Puig, hitting .314. Corey Kluber, 12 of his 15 starts, he's allowed 3 runs or less. Came in with 122 strikeouts, and in his career as an American League pitcher, 6-0 against the National League. Ground ball to the hole, long throw for Cabrera, but he has the arm for it. So Puig taps out, 1 away.
Dodgers first baseman number 23, Adrian Gonzalez.
Adrian Gonzalez struck out in the first inning. Adrian, 13 home runs, 50 runs batted in. Don Mattingly, in his pregame comments, he was talking about Adrian. He said Adrian's swing looked like he's about to take off. He's capable of using the whole field. So we'll see what he does after striking out in the first inning. 0-1. Dodgers, going back to June the 8th, have won 15 of 21. The Giants lost 15 out of 19. And the Dodgers are a percentage point. And there goes Adrian now. Goes the other way. Gets a base hit. Cabrera runs it down. So Gonzalez, who had the bunt single, now grounds one to left field. So when Don Mattingly said he uses the whole field, he does indeed. So it's not fishing. You don't throw the little ones back. And the shortstop had to hustle over Cabrera to make a block of the ball. Otherwise, Adrian might have stolen an extra base, driving Terry Francona to drink. Here's Matt Kemp, grounded to third in the first inning. Then Ethier, who flied out, coming up. No score, bottom of the fourth. Fastball, nicely at 92. Matt hitting .274. 8 home runs, 31 runs batted in. He's had a very good June. And a strike. He's not happy about it. 0-2 the count. Because that's a dumb thing to say. I've never seen a hitter delighted about the umpire calling a strike. National League meeting the American League, but there's no longer a big difference with the umpires. Years ago, there used to be quite a difference in the dirt. The difference was that the National League umpires wore the protective chest protector inside their jacket or shirt. The American League umpires used what looked like almost a mattress as a chest protector on the outside. Well, the feeling was because of the outside chest protector, The American League umpires couldn't see the low pitch around the knees. 2-2. So they always said, well, National League is a low ball league. But now the umpires have been homogenized. They all wear the same gear. 2 balls, 2 strikes the count to Matt Kemp. And little cutter away at 93. So 3-2 the count. We'll see about the Dodgers with Gonzalez at first. Matt Kemp, remember, leads the club in strikeouts. He struck out 74 times. Gonzalez held on by Santana. Adrian, very short lead. Not going. And a one-hopper by the scrambling Chisenhall all the way down the line. Brantley goes over to get it. They will stop Gonzalez with 1 out. And the Dodgers have runners at second and third. So the little ground ball to the left side for Gonzalez. And now Matt Kemp drills one over third down the line. Chisenhall tried but couldn't get it. By the time Brantley came over to run it down in the corner, the Dodgers had runners at second and third with 1 out. And they have Andre Ethier coming up. So Matt Kemp comes up with his 21st double. He has 2 triples, 8 home runs. And now Ethier trying to at least pick up Gonzalez. Ethier has 1 sacrifice fly. Fouled away. Remember, we told you earlier, despite the fact he's a fastballer and a strikeout pitcher, you'd imagine a lot of fly balls, but actually Corey Kluber is a ground ball pitcher. Well, you look at your book and you see 2 fly ball outs, everything else on the ground. Ethier up against a tough hombre in this situation. No balls, 1 strike. And drops that in. Wow, what a great pitch that was. Although Ethier doesn't agree. 0-2 the count. Look at this. That really is a marvelous pitch. 0-2 the count. Check swing, strike 3. So Andre Ethier strikes out, and the Dodgers still have runners at second and third. The point by the plate umpire Hernandez saying you committed. So down goes Andre Ethier. That's 4 strikeouts for Kluber. Corey came into the game with an earned run average of 3. And over in the American League, where you get the DH, 3 is really a wonderful earned run average. So you can see he's better than 2-1 strikes to balls. He has 4 strikeouts, no walks. And here's Uribe, who struck out in the second inning. 0-1. Corey Kluber with the Indians in last year, 147 innings, 136 strikeouts. Off the plate, 1-1. Second and third, 2 out for the Dodgers. No score, 4th inning. Breaking ball, fly ball to center, very playable. Michael Bourne is there. So the Dodgers blow a chance. They have second and third, one out. Ethier strikes out and Uribe flies to center. So at the end of 4, no score. Here, no score. If you match up the pitchers, as you can see, 3 hits allowed by Kluber, 1 hit allowed by Herron, only 1 walk. Herron gave it up. 4 strikeouts for Kluber. He is indeed a strikeout pitcher, although Dan's kind of keeping up with him. So Herron now going to work in the 5th. Chisenhall, Gomes, and Murphy. We mentioned it earlier about the fact that Chisenhall against the Rangers had 5 hits, 3 home runs, and 9 runs batted in. And you might wonder, holy mackerel, how many fellas have done that? Line drive, foul, 0-1. Well, Fred Lynn of the Red Sox did it in 1975. Gil Hodges of the Dodgers did it back in Brooklyn in 1950. Big Walker Cooper, the famous catcher, his brother Mort, they were the brother team for the St. Louis Cardinals for years. Pull foul again. Walker by this time in 1949 was with Cincinnati. He did it. And Lonnie Chisenhall, June the 9th this year against Texas. They beat Texas like a drum, 17-7. In the dirt. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Foul the other way. Chisenhall, a first-round pick by the Indians, was originally drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates. Herron knows all about him. He'd read about him, scouting report. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Lonnie Chisenhall. Breaking ball missed. Lonnie accepted a baseball scholarship to the University of South Carolina. Now the 2-2 pitch. Ball 3. Chisenhall is 6'2", 195. Hitting behind him, Yan Gomes. And that's a looper right to Gordon. So 1 out. Yan Gomes coming up. Yan, as we mentioned earlier, from Sao Paulo in Brazil. He was born in Brazil, moved to Miami when he was 12. Blue Jays drafted him out of Barry University in Florida. And a strike. It was June of 2012. Yan Gomes became the first Brazilian baseball player ever to play in the major leagues. 6'2", 215, 27 years old. Foul ball. Wow, that was close. Right into the Dodger dugout. Just about where Don Mattingly stands. Just to the left of Mattingly, Tim Wallach is the one who almost got it. Hooks that thing foul. Look out. You wouldn't think you could turn on a ball that much, but they can do it. And down goes Gomes. So Herron has struck out 4. Kluber has struck out 4. So these two pitchers are really locked in. David Murphy walked in the 3rd inning and got as far as 3rd. Ball 1. Murph walked. He was sacrificed by Kluber. Took 3rd on the infield single by Bourne. But then Cabrera struck out. Murph taps it wide of 3rd. Uribe can't. Rojas can. And got him. Boy, I'll tell you one thing. Rojas is a dandy at shortstop. Down go the Indians. Uribe tries. Can't get it, but there's Miguel backing up and makes the play. And at the end of 4 1/2, no score. Fifth inning, no score. Be sure to join us for the next episode of Backstage Dodgers. Andre Ethier and Don Mattingly take a trip to the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum in Kansas City. Don't miss this unforgettable new episode of Backstage Dodgers. That'll be tomorrow at 9 p.m. right here on Sportsnet LA. Well, Dan Herron has made 12 pitches. That's 80 in the game. Corey Kluber has made 61 pitches through 4 innings. By the way, David Murphy, the right fielder, has probably reached that stage in his young life where he is talking to himself. Murphy grounded out in the 5th inning. He now has 1 hit in his last 43 at-bats. Ouch. A.J. Ellis, then Miguel Rojas and Dan Herron. One of our favorite people is over in the American League, so you don't see him very often, but that's Terry Francona. I knew his dad, Tito, but Terry is a really special person. Don't want to interfere with AJ's at bat. Ball one. When Terry Francona was in high school, and this really will tell you what kind of a kid he was and what kind of a man he is. 1 ball and no strikes. We'll get back and forth to him. Inside, ball 2. Terry broke a school record for the golf team. And he went to the golf coach and said, "What was the name of the player who held the record before I broke it?" Here's the 2-0 pitch. In there, 2-1. And the answer was a fellow named Rodney Oxenhurt. He was a well-liked kid who had died in a car accident, and his name had been preserved on the trophy. Francona paused, looked at the trophy, and said, "Never mind my record. Leave that name on the trophy." 1 away. Yeah, he's special. He really is. And the first thing, talking to the Cleveland broadcasters, and they said, "Boy, do we love this guy." They all agreed, "We don't know where we'd be without Terry Francona." Terry, 55 years old, went to the University of Arizona. Rick Monday was playing at the same time that Terry Francona's father, Tito, was playing. And Terry would come out to watch his dad, hang out in the dugout, put a little uniform on, go out on the field. And Rick Monday was one of the players who would play catch with him. And now all of a sudden, there's Rick up in the booth, and Terry is the manager. Little ground ball to short, Rojas, 2 down. And the batter will be Dan Herron. Meanwhile, Corey Kluber is just rolling right along. He got out of the one jam we've had tonight. 2nd and 3rd, 1 out. Ethier struck out, Uribe fly to center. The Indians had 2nd and 3rd with 2 out, and Cabrera struck out. Bottom of the 5th, no score. It's another one of those push against shove, like the other night, the Cardinal game with Adam Wainwright and Josh Beckett, when the Dodgers won 1-0, and the Cardinals had a man thrown out at the plate, and what looked like a successful steal of second in the 9th inning nullified when Peter Borges came off the bag. 1-1 the count to Dan. Struck out, 3rd inning. No runs, 3 hits for the Dodgers. No runs, 1 hit. That was the ground ball up the middle by Michael Bourne, with a great stop by Rojas, as Kemp, Uribe, and Puig are spectators. 2-1. Corey Kluber, Kluber, wonderful young pitcher. Boy, I bet the Padres wish they had him. They had him once upon a time. 2-2 to Dan. They were kidding Kluber about, we told you the story, sitting on the floor. He wrecked his right knee changing the diaper on his baby girl. They said, "Do you still change the diaper?" And he said, "Yes, but you have to have that elevated changing table. You certainly can't do it on the floor." He had that knee surgically repaired 2 years ago. D. Gordon waits on deck. No score, 5th inning. Fastball fouled away at 91. Dan didn't get around on it, but he did get a little of it. It might have been ball 3, or maybe would have been ball 4. I think he turned, and I believe Hernandez said it would have been ball 4. It was up and in. All right, 3-2. Punch that thing. It'll be Santana. Just kind of walk it over to the bag, and that'll be that. So the Dodgers tiptoe through the 5th inning, and at the end of 5, no score. Dodger Stadium, its first year. Sandy Koufax against the New York Mets, about 32,000 in the stands, and Sandy pitched a no-hitter. Not only was it a no-hitter, his first of 4, we had an idea about greatness when he struck out the side in the first inning on 9 pitches. Sandy never got proud about any of his no-hitters, and you have to remember, 1962, the Mets were an expansion team. They were not very good at all, managed by Casey Stengel, and when the year was over, the New York Mets had lost 120 games that year. But never mind, it was still first no-hitter for Sandy Koufax. Let's go back to this one. Pitching duel again. Dan Haren, Corey Kluber. Kluber now has made 74 pitches. Haren tried to tire him a little bit with a 7-pitch at bat. Dan working on Kluber, so we'll see if Kluber returns the favor. 2-0 the count. Corey sacrificed in the 3rd inning. Ball 3. Now what's very interesting, remember Haren walked Murphy in the 3rd inning, and the Dodgers have that streak. No more than 2 walks, 33 straight games. It's a strike. And a hopper to short. Rojas stays with it. Boy, that was hit hard. 1 away. Rojas has made the play of the night so far, with Murphy at second base and 2 out in the 3rd. Michael Bourne hit a shot up the middle. Looked like a base hit to center to drive in a run, but it was smothered by Rojas, kept the ball on the infield, and then Cabrera came up and struck out. Ball 1 to Michael Bourne, who was grounded out and then got that ground ball single up the middle. In on the hands, 0-2, little cutter. Missed inside. 1-2 the count to Michael Bourne. Bourne hitting .274, 2 home runs, 20 runs batted in. That's in the dirt. 2 balls, 2 strikes. One out, bases empty, top of the 6th. Haren has retired 8 in a row. Foul back. Dan began the game, retired 7 in a row. Got into that little spot of trouble in the 3rd. And now he's nailed 8. 2-2. Ball 3. Bourne's had a good month. He has scored 20 runs for the Indians in the month of June. And he is very much a ground ball hitter. In fact, his 2 at-bats were ground balls. And this time a fly ball. Puig is there. 2 down. 9 in a row retired by Haren. No score in the ball game, and the batter will be Cabrera.
Shortstop number 13 has dribbled Cabrera.
Taking a look at Puig, the way he caught that fly ball. I remember as a kid trying to play, reading a book written by Terry Moore, who was a marvelous center fielder for the St. Louis Cardinals. And he wrote, if you play in the outfield, try to catch the ball like you're catching a baby bird falling out of its nest, very gently. You don't want to squeeze it. And Puig was about as gentle on that fly ball as possible. 0-1, using just the glove. Cabrera grounded out, struck out. Well, that reminds me of something. Hard ground ball. Gonzalez will do it himself. St. Louis Cardinals had a wonderful second baseman, one of the nicest guys you'd ever want to know, Red Schoendienst. Schoendienst always carried his glove just before the pitch, and then he put it on. Anyway, at the end of 5.5, no score. No score in the ball game. Bottom of the 6th inning. If you're late joining us, the only close to score we had in the 3rd inning. A walk to Murphy, a sacrifice to get him to second. Bourne singled Murphy to third on the infield. Bourne stole second, and then Cabrera struck out. Roy Campanella, Jackie Robinson, Sandy Koufax, and Gil Hodges. What a picture. Yep. What a group. What an honor and a pleasure to have watched them play and manage, looking at Walter Alston's number. And of course, the politically inclined Sean Figgins is wearing the vote for D for All-Star. D. Gordon followed by Yasiel Puig and then Adrian Gonzalez. Right. I remember a cryptic line said by one politician about another whom he thought was not very bright. He said, I looked into his clear blue eyes and I thought I was looking out the window. Well, that'll be that for D. One away in the 6th inning. The batter will be Yasiel Puig. Single to right, grounded to short. Though we have something going here. The Dodgers close to a run in the 4th inning with 1 out. Gonzalez just popped the ball up along third base. There wasn't anybody there to field it. And then Matt Kemp doubled down into the left field corner with 1 out. They weren't going to try and score Gonzalez. And with 2nd and 3rd, Andre Ethier came up and struck out. And then Uribe fly to center, and that's that. So each side had runners at 2nd and 3rd, and each side came up empty. Ball 1. Yasiel single to right, grounded to short. His average at .313. 11 home runs, 45 runs batted in. Hit foul late upstairs. Kluber has struck out 4. Dan Haren has struck out 4. Haren has walked 1. Kluber has not walked anybody. 2-1. Waiting on deck, Adrian Gonzalez. We're in the 6th. No score. Fastball at 93. 2-2. Adrian waits. Puig back up there. 2 balls and 2 strikes the count. And a high fly ball, very playable. Michael Bourne. So 2 down, and the batter will be Adrian Gonzalez. Remember, the Dodgers took the field 1 percentage point behind the Giants. I mean, if it were the last day of the season, that would kill you. I mean, if it gets down to percentage points, if you're short, you lose. But we have a long way to go. So Puig sits back and thinks things over, and Gonzalez at the plate with Matt Kemp on deck. Ball 1. Again, they load up the right side. The only thing they do that a lot of National League teams do not do, they leave their third baseman at least in an area reasonably close to third base. 1-0. 2-0. For Adrian, the veteran hitter. And now they've moved the third baseman way over with the count 2 balls and no strikes. So now they are overly committed for sure. Strike. Adrian, when he's up there and they overship like that, he's thinking, if I can get a pitch, I'll go the other way, but it has to be a certain pitch. 2-1. Pulled instead, and he found the hole. Diving at it was Kipnis, and on his way to second base with a stand-up double is Adrian Gonzalez. Boy, you talk about finding a hole. Line drive between Santana and Kipnis down into the right field corner. The second Dodger double and their 4th hit, but still no runs. Got a pitch down, and of course that really is his wheelhouse. Most left-hand hitters like the ball down, and it got by Kipnis and down into the corner. So Gonzalez is 2 for 3. Matt Kemp doubled inside third and down the line. Two out, no score. Gonzalez at second. Kind of a tough man to score on a base hit. Matt doubled and grounded out. Little roller to third, gobbled up by Chisholm Hall, and that's that. So Kemp, impatient, I guess. First ball swinging, taps to third. Dodgers leave Gonzalez, and at the end of 6, no score. Way down in the left field corner, and they have their gloves waiting for a home run. Actually, where they are, it'd be a foul ball, but they have their gloves and a heart full of hope. And then there are those with their hair piled high atop their heads. What a great group, huh? A reminder, Thursday, July 10th, be one of the first 40,000 fans in attendance to pick up your Dodger-themed Hello Kitty travel mug. For tickets, visit Dodgers.com/promotion. Interesting, both pitchers are so locked in, they have each allowed 10 ground balls. Kubler in his 6 innings has made 86 pitches. Dan has made 94. And here we go into the 7th. Ball 1. One of the interesting things, too, as Kluber relaxes, Aaron has come close to walking more than 1, but he's been able to stop it at 1. Ground ball right at Gordon. Now that's the 11th ground ball hit against Aaron. Take a look at Dan. Struck out 4. Started with Kipnis. Later on he got Cabrera. Then he picked up Kipnis again, and then Gomes. The 1 out in the 7th, no score. Dan has done a bit of a high wire act. He's had 7 3-ball counts, but he's only walked 1. And in the other at-bats, the other 6 3-ball counts, the Indians are 0-for-6. Line drive backhanded by Adrian. Though Santana hits one hard, and Gonzalez at the other end of it.
Second baseman, number 22, Jason Kipnis.
Take another look. That's 12 in a row retired by Dan Haren as he faces Kipnis, who's already struck out twice. A bunt foul, 0-1. When the Dodgers come up in the bottom of the 7th, they'll have Ethier, Uribe, and Ellis. One ball and 1 strike to Jason Kipnis. Off the corner. 2-1. Dan Haren has now made 101 pitches. His season high back in May, he made 115. Pulled foul. In his career, once in 2010 and once in 2012, his pitch count got up to 126. 2-2. Fastball got him. And for Kipnis, 3rd time he has struck out tonight. 5 strikeouts for Dan Haren. 13 in a row retired by Haren, and no score. Boy, we have another push against shove. Cleveland and the Dodgers. Bottom of the 7th inning. No score. The Dodgers with 4 hits and nothing to show for it. And the Indians just 1 hit. That was an infield single, but actually it would have been a just clean base hit. It took a diving stop by Miguel Rojas to keep it an infield single, and that prevented the only possible run tonight that might have scored and couldn't. Andre Ethier knows about the possible. He had a shot at it. Came up in the 4th inning, 2nd and 3rd, 1 out, infield up, and he struck out. Andre 0 for 2, hitting .246. Good breaking ball for a strike. So Dan Haren has made 103 pitches. Down in the bullpen, Brian Wilson is up. So Dan could be finished for the night. Slicing fly ball to deep left center field, and that one is going to be off the glove of left fielder Brantley, and Ethier is going to go for 3, and he is in there. Andre Ethier couldn't get the fly ball in the 4th inning, and he got more than the fly ball now. Michael Brantley in strange area reached up. It tipped off the tips of his glove right there, so he should have caught it, but he didn't. And the Dodgers have a runner at 3rd and nobody out. So Brantley can't make the catch. Ethier has himself a triple. That would be his 3rd of the year. The infield is up, nobody out. Uribe, Ellis, and Rojas. A little foul ball in on the hands. 0-1 the count. So Haren now, all bundled up, has a chance to be in line to pick up a win. Oh, and 1 the count to Juan Uribe. One and 1. Kluber has made 93 pitches. His high, well, last time out, he made 113 pitches. Last year, he made 114. Kyle Crockett was the left-hander. Remember, we told you that Cleveland averages at least 3 relievers per game. Fastball, a chopper, nice pick at short by Cabrera. So Uribe can't do it. 1 out. And A.J. Ellis coming up. Tough ball game. Wow, no score. Bottom of the 7th. Dodgers for the 2nd time. They have a chance, but they're frustrated for the moment. A.J. Ellis has grounded to 3rd and grounded to short. Despite that long fly ball, we told you earlier that Kluber is basically a ground ball pitcher. Ball 1. That's that 2-seamer, which has great sink to it. He also has the 4-seamer. Then the slider and the change. But if you had to sum him up, he's a fastball pitcher. 1 ball and no strikes. One and 1. Ellis has only 4 runs batted in, but he's only been in 28 games. Ethier at third, 1 out. Breaking ball in there. Of course, for Kluber, he has to concentrate on the hitter. But remember, coming into this game, Cleveland had made 70 errors. One ball, 2 strikes. And breaking ball, a slider in the dirt. Nice block by Yan Gomes. Otherwise, wild pitch, and the run is in. Kluber, by the way, has 3 wild pitches. Miguel Rojas waiting on deck. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Wouldn't bite. No swing. 3-2. Now Kluber has had perfect control. He has not walked anybody in 96 pitches. He's now 3-2 to Ellis. Ethier walking down the line from third. The infield is up. 1 out. No score. And a breaking ball got him. AJ on his way to first base is called out on the breaking ball. And the Dodgers now are going to roll the dice. Here's that curveball up there, and he thinks it's outside, but more importantly, Angel Hernandez does not. So Ellis strikes out, 2 down. 5 strikeouts. And Hanley Ramirez coming up. Hanley Ramirez banged up a bad calf. Nevertheless, he can swing the bat. Francona's pitching coach, Mickey Callaway, going out to the mound. Hanley Ramirez hitting .272, 11 home runs, 46 runs batted in. The Dodgers, remember, have Carlos Triunfel. So if they want to come up with another shortstop, they have another good one. It is very doubtful. In fact, I can't believe that Ramirez would stay in the game. So it's a one-shotter here with 2 out, the runner at third, and the pitcher, Dan Herron, due up next, and Clint Robinson comes out on deck. There's nobody on the left side. I'm just going to say they can't pitch to him. No, they're going to put him on with the third baseman right at the bag holding Ethier. There's no one really, so they can't pitch to him. They will walk him intentionally. First and third. So the Dodgers wasted a second and third and 1 out in the 4th. They wasted a double with 2 out in the 6th. And now the question is, will they waste a leadoff triple in the 7th? As Ramirez gets the walk. The only walk Kluber has given up. Clint Robinson waiting on deck is the rookie who is just recently called up. He's only had 2 at-bats, and he is 0 for 2. So there's ball 4. And now let's see about a runner. Justin Turner, who would have been suddenly the #1 pinch hitter, can't play. Turner's on the DL. Ramirez is walking to first base. Well, we'll wait and see. So Ramirez bats for Rojas. You got to believe that Triunfel will be coming in. Clint Robinson out of Jefferson City, Missouri, lives in Prospect, Kentucky. Originally drafted by the Royals, out of Troy College back in 2007. Though Ramirez can't run, I mean, he can barely walk. And a strike. Well, your first thought is Ramirez with a bad leg. You can't expect him to play short. Why wouldn't Triunfel run for him? I'm sure they have reasons. There he is, slowly getting ready. Little fly ball, a trio looking, and it's going to drop untouched in the stands. Hold everything, Michael Brantley. You didn't pay for a ticket. Yeah, Brantley not going to give up. Determined. Ball's already gone. He's not going to fight it. He'll just slowly go over. The judges all give him 9. 0-2 to Clint Robinson. First and third, 2 out. No score. 7th inning. One and two. Robinson played briefly 4 games actually in the big leagues with the Royals 2 years ago. In the 4 games, 4 at bats, went 0 for 4, struck out twice. So now it's his second cup of coffee. 1-2. Two and two. You know how the crowd usually makes a noise? They want every pitch to be a strike. If it's a Dodger pitcher, they groaned then. They thought that was going to be strike 3. It was close. So Ethier triples and he's still there. Off speed, 3-2. Well, with Hanley at first base, and they know he can't run very well, they're certainly not going to hold him on. Santana gets off the bag. Big moment here for Kluber and Cleveland. Ground ball up the middle. A run is in. Ramirez stops at second. A big hit, his first major league hit, and he drives in a run to give the Dodgers a 1-0 lead. So they've got to get that ball and get it over to the dugout. What a thrill to not only get your first major league hit, but then to get it up the middle to drive in a go-ahead run. Now Carlos Triunfel is running at second base for Hanley Ramirez. No chance for Cabrera to catch up to it. So a big hit by Clint Robinson, and the Dodgers finally break through and lead 1-0. So Triunfel now runs for Ramirez. And the batter will be D. Gordon. Terry Francona going out to the mound. All he can do is pat Kubler on the shoulder. Actually, for Cleveland, they've only had 1 chance, and they had second and third, 2 out in the 3rd inning and failed to score. So it's 1-0 Dodgers. We'll be right back. Andre Ethiers' triple was a ball that actually went off the glove of left fielder Michael Brantley. If Michael holds on to that ball, Kluber's got himself a shutout like Dan Herron. So now Kyle Crockett. No, he's not from Texas. He's from Virginia. The left-hander out of the University of Virginia. 6'2" and on the lean side, 170. His first year in the big leagues. He's been in 11 games or so prior to tonight. D. Gordon is the batter. Triunfel is now running for Ramirez at second base. Robinson, who came up with that huge hit at first, and Gordon is 0 for 3. Ball one. Kluber made 107 pitches and pitched a dandy, matching Dan Herron all the way. So Dan in line for a win. Dodgers lead 1-0. Two 2-0 the count. Interesting, the Indians in another tough game. Josh Tomlin tossed a one-hitter Saturday night in Seattle. And then Cleveland came right back and got just one hit against the Mariners. That's right. That's happened 7 times during a series in the last 100 years. The Indians get a one-hitter, and then the Mariners get a one-hitter. It's 1-0 Dodgers here in the 7th. It'll be Chisenhall, Gomes, and Murphy in the 8th for Cleveland. Fouled away. Here's Clint Robinson's base hit. I'm sure he will see that in his mind a good portion of the night before he drifts off. Got a pitch out over the plate, grounds it up the middle. Cabrera cannot get it. Now he realizes it's not only a hit, but a huge run batted in. Pat on the back from Davey Lopes. Andre Ethier triples and they get him home. On the hands, still 2-2. Remember, D. Gordon in runners in scoring position. He's second in the league, hitting .362, and now trying to pick up Triunfel from second base. 1 run, 6 hits for the Dodgers. No runs, 1 hit for Cleveland. Breaking ball popped up. It'll be Chisenhall, the third baseman, and that's it. So the Dodgers struggle and finally get a run. They were fortunate. Andre Ethier hits a long fly ball to left. Michael Brantley gets his glove on it, but he can't hold it. And eventually Ethier's cashed in on the base hit by the pinch hitter, Clint Robinson. And at the end of 7, 1-0 Dodgers. As we go to the 8th inning, what's ahead? Well, more Indians. Cleveland will be here tomorrow night, and then Wednesday at 12 o'clock. Come have some lunch with us. Dodgers then hit the road. They'll go to Colorado for 4, an off day. 2 days in Detroit, and they come home to play San Diego and then the All-Star break. Meanwhile, Brian Wilson is asked to hold on to a 1-0 lead in relief of Dan Haren. Chisenhall, the hottest hitter for the Indians at the plate. Check swing, strike, 0-1 the count. Chisenhall batting .347, 8 home runs, 36 runs batted in. Carlos Triunfel is now at short. 1-1. One ball and one strike. Fastball. Chisenhall flied to right and looped out to D. Gordon in the 5th inning. When it's all said and done, remember the Indians have one hit, a ground ball up the middle, heading for center field and smothered by Miguel Rojas. Still 1-2. 2 strikes on Chisenhall. He's had 19 RBIs this year with 2 strikes on him. One and two. Fastball away. Down in the Dodger bullpen, J.P. Howell getting ready. Going after a pitch borderline as far as the strike is concerned. 6 Indians have struck out. Haren struck out 5. Now Wilson picks up 1. The big thing, that is the 14th consecutive out for Cleveland. Haren retired 13 in a row. Now Chisenhall goes down. Yan Gomes coming up with David Murphy on deck. Gomes grounded to short and struck out. And a strike, 0-1. No balls, 1 strike. 1-1. Yan Gomes, back in 2013, helped Brazil qualify for its first ever berth in the World Baseball Classic. He was the only major leaguer on Brazil's team. He became a hero in his country, left Sao Paulo as a teenager, and came back as an idol to countless number of children. A big leaguer. And of course, as you know, with the World Cup going on, it is a soccer crazed company. Fastball just missed at 90. 2-2. Yan, 27 years old. Ground ball, sounded like crack bat. Uribe on the money. So that's 15 in a row retired. And the batter will be David Murphy. David Murphy would just as soon not hear anybody talk about in a row. Meanwhile, Lorenzo Bundy gesturing. Gordon has moved over. It's Triunfel they really want to move a little bit over to his left. And now they want Uribe wide of third. Remember, Murphy walked and got as far as third. He grounded out in the 5th inning. He has 1 hit in his last 43 at bats. Nick Swisher is on deck. Two and 0. Swisher, who was with the A's and the Yankees, now with the Indians, waiting his turn. That's at the knees, 2-1. The last man to get aboard for Cleveland was Michael Bourne with a single back in the 3rd inning. And another strike. Two out, 8th inning, 1-0 Dodgers. Capita short, Triunfel. All right. 16 in a row retired since Michael Bourne had the single. And at the end of 7 1/2, 1-0 Dodgers. Hit, and the last 16 in a row have been retired. Well, time's running out to vote for your Major League Baseball All-Stars this year. You can help send your favorite Dodger to the All-Star game. You can vote up to 35 times at Dodgers.com. Vote exclusively at Dodgers.com or on your mobile phone. Voting ends Thursday, July 3rd at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. Well, Dan Herron went a strong 7, made 103 pitches. Then Brian Wilson came in and made 16 pitches in the 8th inning. And now Allen coming out of the pen to pick up for the Indians. And the Dodgers will start off with Yasiel Puig. Cody Allen is out of Orlando, Florida. He went to college in North Carolina. He's 6'1", 210. He will be 26 in November. Drafted in 2011. Came up for the cup of coffee 2 years ago. Then last year he stayed, and here he is again. Ball 1 to Yasiel Puig. Puig tonight, single to right, grounded to short, fly to center. 1 ball and no strikes. High pop fly, angling out is Kipnis and calling, and Jason makes the catch. 1 away. A very tough game for Corey Kluber.
First baseman number 23.
He's charged with 1 run. And on a ball that, well, Michael Brantley might have caught. It hit his glove. I'm sure he'll be thinking about that. Of course, it's also like the Music Man. You have to know the territory, and Michael hadn't played here. Ethier, of course, grateful for the triple, and the Dodgers for the run. Fouled away. Again, the shift is on, and after the first pitch, then they move Chisenhall. So the very first pitch, he holds his ground. Brad Mills talking to Terry. Boy, they've been buddies for a long time. Oh, and 2. Adrian struck out, went the other way and rolled one up along third for a base hit, and then doubled between Santana and Kipnis. Matt Kemp on deck. By the way, when the Indians come up in the 9th inning, the pitcher spot leads off. Foul back. Down in the pen, Kenley Jansen doesn't want to get ready too soon. Only 1 out. No balls, 2 strikes. Cody Allen in battling for a job as eventual big leaguer. Went to High Point College, recruited to the University of Central Florida, transferred to St. Petersburg Junior College, all the while trying to learn his craft. High pop fly. It will be the second baseman, Jason Kipnis. So Gonzalez goes 2 for 4 as he pops it up. 2 down in the battle will be Matt Kemp. Cody Allen was the Cleveland minor league pitcher of the year 2 years ago. That got him up here. He's fastball and curveball. Scouts say he ought to throw that curveball a little more. Here's Matt Kemp. Grounded to third, double to left, grounded to third again, and usually very early in the count. Last time, first pitch. This time, ball 1. Cody Allen made his major league debut 2 years ago against Baltimore, and as he said, he was scared to death. He said the heart was beating out of his chest. He walked the 2 hitters he faced and then settled in. He had 12 straight scoreless appearances, and someone we might see as a pinch hitter tonight now is his teammate, but Yankee right fielder Nick Swisher hit a 2-run home run against him. 2-1. Before Swisher had hit that home run, Allen had left-handers 0 for 21. So Swisher now down there with the bat in hand, helmet on head, will probably bat for Allen. There's a story. 2-1. Ground ball to short, hit pretty much off the end of the bat. So the Dodgers go quietly. That's the theme tonight. And we go to the 9th inning. Kenley Jansen is ready. The Dodgers hope. And the Dodgers lead 1-0. 1 run, 6 hits for the Dodgers. 1 hit. It happened back in the 3rd inning. David Murphy had walked. Kluber sacrificed him to second, and Michael Bourne hit a ground ball up the middle. It looked like it was going to wind up in center field. However, diving, smothering the ball, and that was Rojas, who kept it on the infield. Murphy had to stop at third. Bourne then stole second. So Cabrera came up, second and third, 2 out, and Dan Haren struck him out. Well, we told you it's interesting how it happens. Cody Allen gave up a 2-run home run to Nick Swisher to ruin his young days as a big leaguer, and now they're teammates, and here comes Swisher batting for him. Nick's been around. He's from Parkersburg, West Virginia. Makes his home in Columbus, Ohio. He was a Buckeye. He went to school at Ohio State. And Nick was a first-round pick by the Oakland A's in 2002. Got a lot of sock. Hit as many as 29 home runs back-to-back years. Kenley's pitch, a strike. The Dodgers, they load up. Triunfel is behind second. All alone, Uribe between second and third. Nick Swisher is a chip off the old block. His dad, Steve Swisher, a big league catcher. 1 ball, 1 strike. Kenley Jansen asked to get him out. Jansen, 0-3 with an ERA of 4, has saved 24. Two and one. Kenley Jansen has walked 11, and he has struck out 56, so 5-1. Line drive right at where Uribe is placed. So Swisher lines out, 1 down. That's 17 in a row retired since the infield single by Michael Bourne. 17. Now the batter is Bourne. Grounded out, singled up the middle, fly to right. Dodgers shorten up, looking bunt. Ball 1. And ball 2. Born from Houston. He'll be 32 a couple of days after Christmas. Very much a tried and true professional. Been in the big leagues since 2006. A high strike. Bourne hitting .273. And another strike, 2-2. Bourne not happy at himself, I think, for taking that pitch, because he's one of those guys, if he gets aboard, he's a threat to steal. He stole tonight already, and he's stolen as many as 38 in the big leagues. Bouncer up the middle. Gordon, off balance throw. Boy, that's amazing. D. Gordon can get that ball over in a hurry, going away from the play. That is so tough, and Uribe congratulates him and almost punches a hole in his chest. Watch this. He's going away, off balance on one leg, and he knows the guy running is very fast. Wonderful play by D. Gordon. That's 18 in a row retired. The only hit, Bourne's base hit in the 3rd inning. Jansen now trying to get Cabrera, who is 0 for 3. Cabrera switch hitter. Astrobal. Ball one. Andre Ethier tripled off the glove of Michael Brantley. And the base hit by Clint Robinson, his first major league hit, his first major league RBI, and that's the difference in the game. Pop fly. It's Triunfel. There you go. The Dodgers are now in first place all by themselves. They lead the Giants by a half a game, and they win another tough 1-0 game thanks to Clint Robinson's clutch base hit and run batted in. The Dodgers now are 4 out of 5 in shutouts at home and 9 and 3 in shutouts during the regular year. There were two big plays in the game tonight for the Dodgers. Go back early in the game, third inning, base hit up the middle, except Rojas kept the ball on the infield, and they could not score the run because Murphy had to stay at third. And then, of course, Clint Robinson's ground ball up the middle. That cashed in Ethier, who had tripled off Brantley's glove, and the Dodgers make it stand up and win it 1-0. What a night. Hope you'll be out here with us tomorrow night. Till then, we wish you all a very pleasant good evening, everybody.